Habíamos hablado de los compromisos.
We were talking about compromises. I have said that in some kind of alliance one makes compromises with allies. There are compromises which helps the revolution and are revolutionary, of course, but there are compromises that are clearly treasonous, and we must be able to differentiate between them. What are the compromises that really help the revolution? I said I wanted to give an example that was very controversial and continue being. The peace agreement of Brest-Litov that ended the war of 1918 between the revolutionary Russia and the Imperial Germany. Some continue to think it was a mistake that Lenin decided on the necessity of signing that peace accord, failing to remember that it was a situation when revolutionary Russia, since the October victory, was being suffering from the rise of civil war and imperialist intervention. At that time, the situation of the Red Army was very complicated. It was March 1918 when the treaty was signed. That was clearly a retreat. Territory was given up. And why was it signed? Because it was thought that only by ceding territory the revolution could be preserved. It was a question of survival of the revolution. The alternative was one could either continue the struggle and the revolution would die, because there was a danger of death of the revolution, or one retreats, abandon part of the territory in order for the revolution to survive. Lenin says, it is not true that those that oppose this policy says that the revolution will die if we advance, but also will die if we retreat. He said, we are going to retreat, we will conserve our forces, and afterwards we will advance. You can agree or not with some of Lenin's statements, but nobody can deny he was an extraordinary strategist. Let's see what he wrote in the text, The Chief Task of Our Days, on March 1918. He said, we have betrayed nothing and nobody. We have not sanctified or covered up any lie. We have not refused to help a single friend or a comrade in misfortune in every way we could and with everything at our disposal. A general who withdrew the remnants of his army into the heart of the country when it has been beaten or is in panic, this retreat by a harsh and humiliating peace is not guilty of treachery towards that part of his army which is powerless to help and which has been cut off by the enemy. Such a general performed his duty by choosing the only way of saving that what can still be saved, by refusing to gamble recklessly, by not embellishing the bitter truth for the people, by surrendering space in order to gain time, by taking advantage of any and every respite, even the briefest, in which master his forces, and to allow his army to rest or recover, if it is affected by disintegration and demoralization. Lenin clearly knew that this was an unpopular measure. Who is happy to give up part of our own country's territory? But knowing the correlation of forces, the condition of his own army, he saw that by ceding territory, signing a repugnant peace accord, as he described it, would enable survival of the revolution, and history shows he was right. That is, the army recovered and the country was transformed into a great Soviet Union.
Ahora, los aliados, ya hemos hablado de que puede haber acuerdos o compromisos.
We have spoken of allies and that there can be agreements of engagements. Now let's see what kind of allies there can be. There can be strategic allies and tactical allies. Strategic allies are those popular forces who support revolutionaries in achieving the strategic transformation of the country. Tactical allies are those forces that support us on one stage of development because they have more affinity with us than with the conservative forces in that moment. But we know that at some point in the course of events they will opt for an alternative way. It is very likely, for example, that the bourgeois sector, which support the process at one stage, will oppose it when that process begins to radicalize towards socialism. Also, we have distinguished between internal and external allies. We must not forget that it is fundamental to have external allies. We can have a large national majority in support of our process, but if the forces in opposition externally are sufficiently powerful, they can crush us. Clearly, there is no revolution that can succeed in only one country alone. In the same way as in the case of the internal allies, we can distinguish between strategic and tactical allies among the international ones. It is important also to differentiate between potential allies and real allies. You can, if you are a good strategist, predict who can be with you if you do good work with them. Now they are opposed to us, but working politically with them, they could be able to understand that here are objectives in common that we could share in the short term, that they can be our allies. So, a good political strategist is capable of changing those potential allies in real allies. The one who is capable of integrating into the struggle all those who still have not joined us but would be willing to do it. Do you remember that we spoke about a positive program of action or a platform for struggle? The idea then is to create a platform for struggle against the main enemy, a platform with which the maximum numbers of sectors of the country can be identified. Now let's look at the policy of alliances. First, let's define. The policies of alliances are the guideless line that establish the alliance. There must not be only a policy of alliances orientated to win sectors over. There are also policies of alliances to neutralize sectors. Knowing a sector cannot be won, a policy can be followed which at least stops that sector from supporting the enemy, maintaining him at the margin of the two opponents. That is called a neutralizing policy.